Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not going to follow the order of the Honourable Lady. I'm going to deal with the under-occupancy first, because rarely have I heard such a pathetic defence of a government's position as I've heard here today. This is not a set of proposals based on fairness. It's not to deal with under-occupancy of social housing, but it's a barefaced attempt to cut the housing benefit. That's what it is. And frankly, for a minister who spoke for 3/4 of an hour, who kept telling us she wanted to make progress, I feel as though we were back in the 19th century with some of the stuff that she was talking about. And to talk about social tenants as though they were some breed apart, and I noticed that she said these people. Well, frankly, many of us in this House once were these people. Some of us are still these people. That this is an unfair proposal, that it is attempting to disadvantage those who are already disadvantaged in many respects, and is about to hit the poorest, along with some of the other elements in this welfare reform bill. But I just want to put on the record some of the fantastic work that was done by the Honourable Member for Westminster North, who is in her place today. Because when it comes to this issue, the Honourable Lady talks as though there are millions of houses out there that are ready for people to move into. But the government doesn't even understand how many houses there are out there, and the government doesn't even agree on what constitutes over-occupancy. Because, no, I will not. I'll certainly not give way at the moment. Because my honourable friend, the member for Westminster North, asked DLCG a question about what constituted under-occupancy, and they said, in fact, that it was 2 bedrooms that constituted under-occupancy, whereas the DWP have a far more restrictive interpretation.
Is that under-occupation is particularly a problem, not exclusively, particularly a problem in the north of England, and overcrowding is particularly, not exclusively, a problem in the south of England. Now, local authorities have their own legal duties to their tenants. If somebody is seeking to downsize from Salford, then local authorities will not be permitted to take that person, because they all have residency qualifications, to go and live in Doncaster or Hull.
Illustration, and I want to thank my honourable friend from Blythe Valley, Northumberland County Council, which has probably got a mixture of housing in various kinds of localities, and they have estimated that it will take 8 years, 8 long years, before this part of the government's proposals are put in place. And while those 8 years are being we're going through those 8 years, what will happen then is that other people who are on the housing list will not be able to get into suitable housing for them. So the housing list extends. The housing list extends. Frankly, no, I am not going to take anything. I am not going to take an intervention just now from the honourable lady, but I will take one from
that these, as my honourable friend for Vauxhall said, are people's homes, and even if they wanted to downsize, there isn't the housing stock there for them to move into.
Honourable gentleman, to put the lady out of her misery, let's go.
Thank you. I'm most grateful.
People's houses. My mother lived in a local authority house all her life. She never thought that it was anything other than her home. She didn't see it as anything second class. She didn't see it as anything that was inferior. She lived in it, and that's what was right for her.
As well as the socially disastrous consequences she's talked about, does she recognise that in the context of Northern Ireland, where under the parity principle this measure would have to be transposed, particular difficulties will be caused in relation to access to social housing in the future, to the demands for new social houses that are of benefit size to be built in particular locations, and given the geosectarian tensions in parts of Northern Ireland, it could be a factor for destabilisation, where certain communities could be seen to be punished for their current demographic status.
But I don't want to lose the point. No, the honourable lady definitely isn't getting in. Can I pick up on the point from? Certainly not at the moment. He makes a very, very valid point. But let me just, well, all right then, right, the honourable lady.
That she will obviously be aware of the new National Home Swap scheme, which will do many of what she's talking about, importantly, to help people to identify housing in other areas, but also that we're providing funding to councils of some £13 million over the next 4 years for them to be able to support under-occupying tenants who wish to move. And of course, you will know that a great deal of commitment from the government in terms of helping build affordable housing. Some £4.5 billion will help deliver up to to 170,000 new affordable homes, all ways that we can make the sort of changes that she wants. And just to clarify to her as well, as a lady who was born in a council house.
But obviously she's never had any experience of trying to arrange a mutual swap inside a small local authority area. Not only are we going to have mutual swaps in small local authority areas, we're going to have national swaps, all supported by some anonymous government department. Frankly, the Honourable Lady is living in cloud cuckoo land on this one.
And it's not as simple as saying that you can affect housing swaps. I've tried to housing swaps for constituents within the authority, never mind outside the authority, and it is incredibly difficult. Often one party gets cold feet, often they pull out of it, so it is not an easy thing to achieve at all. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do something about it. I just think of some of the people who've come to see me in my time when I was a councillor. I think of the lady who inherited the house off her parents. It was her home. She'd lived in that home with her parents the whole time. She would now be considered as under-occupying that home. So all I plead to ministers in this, as I'm sure they understand, is that these are not just public assets, though they are. They are people's homes. People have an attachment to their homes.
But before I move on from this particular section, I just want this House to hear what Lord Freud said in the other House when asked about how people would pay for the reduction in rent. And the Honourable Lady sort of glibly passed by that it's only £12 or £14 on average. The noble Lord Freud said, claimants affected by this measure will have to decide whether to meet any shortfall themselves from their earnings, for example, or they could take in a lodger or someone they know to fill in the extra bedrooms. Now, I ask the government, how many times would you expect lodgers to be taken into your family home? Will social landlords allow you to take in lodgers? Because in my experience, you are not, sorry Mr. Speaker, social landlords do not allow tenants to take in social landlords, and I see the Liberals are actually nodding on this one. And indeed, since it is the DWP, they also need to answer the question, if someone receives rent from a social landlord, will that be taken into any benefit calculation that they have to get? They are putting people in an unbelievable bind over this. This particular proposal is ill thought out. It won't achieve its aims. It's predicated on an assumption, frankly, in terms of the impact assessment that it won't work anyway. It will push the poorest people, including those who are working, and we should never forget this is an in-work benefit as well, into even greater disadvantage. It will force social landlords to take eviction action if people end up in arrears. In other words, it's a disaster of a policy where we should support the Lords and his amendments. And I'll take my honourable